Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about Creative Australia's Leadership Scholarships. I am Adelaide Reef, Manager of Leadership Capability here at Creative Australia. I want to begin by acknowledging the many traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and honour their elders past and present. I particularly want to acknowledge the country that I am speaking to you from today, the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, here in our offices in Pirama, in Pyrmont, in Sydney. I also acknowledge the many lands that you might be dialing in from today as you're attending this webinar or from where you're watching this webinar. So this session today is being interpreted and live captions are available. You can turn captions on by selecting the CC button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on our opportunity page on our Creative Australia website later this week. So today we are focusing on the Emerging Regional Arts Leaders Scholarship. This is a new opportunity supporting artists and arts workers with 5 to 10 years of experience who are living and working in regional and remote Australia to access a scholarship package that includes mentoring, participation in the Trail Emerging Leaders program, and attending Artlands, which is Regional Arts Australia's biannual gathering. We'll hear a bit more about those activities in a moment. We have 8 of these scholarships available. And our collaborators on this scholarship package opportunity have joined us today, the folks at the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation and Regional Arts Australia. And I'll introduce you to them in a moment, and we'll be sharing a bit more about the programs, and we'll be able to hear from the providers and you will be able to ask your questions. So this scholarship is offered by the Capability Development team here at Creative Australia. And our role is to support programs, offer grants, and run events that really support artists and arts workers and arts organisations to build the skills, the knowledge, the mindsets, the networks that they need to thrive and to create change. This scholarship opportunity, is part of a group of leadership scholarships that we have available at the moment. As well as a number of other initiatives as part of our Leadership Capability program. So I would really encourage you to check out the Leadership Capability page on the Creative Australia website to have a look at all of the different opportunities we have available. And I also want to just quickly make it clear what we mean by scholarship. So many people may understand the word scholarship as an academic opportunity, something that involves a university study of some description. But here we're using the word scholarship to mean that we will cover the costs of participation fees for the program activities that are included in this scholarship program. We strongly encourage you to check out all of our other open opportunities. In this webinar, we'll be referring sometimes to the opportunity page on our website. So my colleague Emerald, who is helping us behind the scenes today, will put a link in the chat to our homepage for the Leadership Capability opportunities. If you are watching this as a recorded webinar, you can find that link in the description of this video. So our agenda today, so we're going to spend about the first kind of 30 or 40 minutes of our time together hearing from the fabulous teams at the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation and at Regional Arts Australia. And after that, we'll open the floor to questions, your questions, and try to answer as many of those as possible. So you can ask your questions by putting them in the Q&A dialog box. This is in a few different, depending on what device you're using, it's either in the right-hand side of your Zoom window or down the bottom. And when you can put your questions in at any time throughout the webinar, and we'll answer them towards the end. And I think that is it on that. So, oh yes, if you have any questions after this session that we didn't get to, in the Q&A section, or you just would like to have a chat about this opportunity, please feel free to reach out to us via email. You can also make a time to chat with myself or my colleague Emerald directly on the phone or via Zoom, so we can talk with you about the opportunity. Emerald is going to put some links and the email address in the chat now. You can also find that in the description of this video when it is added as a recording. Okay, so let's get into it. Today, I would like to introduce our wonderful collaborators and invite them to pop their cameras on and join the conversation. So introducing Ros Abercrombie, who is the CEO of Regional Arts Australia, and the team at the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation. So Julia Strang, Account Manager, and Simone Carroll Germek, Facilitation and Learning Lead. And we're also really lucky to have Alicia Herman with us, who is a regional arts leader and has been a participant in both the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation's programs, as well as has been part of programs led by Regional Arts Australia. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'll invite you to introduce yourselves more fulsomely in a moment, but I just want to say, share how excited we are to be working with Regional Arts Australia and with the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation to offer this unique scholarship opportunity. Really excited about how it's weaving together a different range of opportunities to really develop skills, knowledge, mindsets and networks. And I think very particularly we're excited to work with your wonderful organisations because really you understand regional and what's happening in regional remote Australia and the really unique set of circumstances and opportunities that there are in change making and advocacy. As I said, we're really excited to offer these pathways for emerging leaders to connect with their peers across the country through these scholarships. So as I mentioned at the start, this scholarship package that we're offering through the Emerging Regional Arts Leaders Scholarship includes participation in Artlands, the Regional Arts Australia's gathering. We'll hear a bit more from Ros about that in a moment. The scholarship also includes participation in TRAIL, the Emerging Leaders Program from the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation, and I'll ask Julia and Simone to speak about that in a moment. And then also includes participation in a mentoring program that will include group and individual mentoring sessions woven between those two activities. So you can find a bit more information about each of those activities, including key dates, on our website. But I would really love to throw over to our panel and ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with the wonderful Ros, please.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Coming in from Wurundjeri country, the Kulin Nation today. I'm Ros, the CEO of Regional Arts Australia. And for those that don't know, Regional Arts Australia is a not-for-profit independent organisation and registered charity. And we work to unlock and supporting unlocking and to unlock the creative potential for artists, organisations and communities across regional remote Australia.
Thanks so much, Ros. And I'll hand now to Julia and then Simone.
Thank you, Adelaide. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Julia Strang and I'm based on Wiradjuri country in central West New South Wales. I work for the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation in the role of account client manager, which is a bit of a mouthful, but essentially it means I work closely with our funding bodies to source funding to get participants on programs. The Australian Rural Leadership Foundation has been running for about 30 years and we're very keen to foster the leadership capacity for people living and working in regional Australia. Our vision is a thriving regional, rural and remote Australia, and we do that through building leadership capacity with our participants. And I'm going to throw across to Simone, my beautiful colleague, to introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Simone Carroll Germak. I live on the south coast of New South Wales on beautiful Yuin country, and this view in the background is only about 200 metres from where I live. I am the program manager and one of the facilitators that has worked on Trail for the last 5 years. It's one of my favourite programs, and I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit of the program with you today.
Thanks so much, Simone. And I'd like to welcome Alicia, please, to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Alicia Herman. I'm zooming to you from Ngadjuri country in regional South Australia. It's about 3 hours north of Adelaide. I work as a creative in all kinds of ways because when you live in the regions, you end up doing a little bit of everything, even if you are completely underqualified to be doing that. So I mostly work as a performance maker, as a writer, and also as a creative producer. And I've held kind of formal leadership roles in a number of organisations, including with Country Arts SA, Kaku, Writers SA, but most of my work has actually been as an independent practitioner, as an artist in my own communities. And that's kind of where my leadership journey has happened. Sometimes we sometimes think of leadership as just being positional leadership, but leadership happens in all kinds of ways. And that's been my experience. And I was lucky enough to be part of the Australian Rural Leadership Program because of that leadership, and also have had quite a lot of interaction with Regional Arts Australia through the funding programs delivered by state partners, but also attended the most recent Artlands. And I think quite a few other regional arts conferences that Regional Arts Australia has brought together over the last few years. My first one, I think, was in Alice Springs 20 years ago. So.
Wonderful, Alicia. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining. Really great to have all of your perspectives in the room today, and to be able to share a bit more about the programs that will be part of this scholarship. I actually wanted to start out our conversation picking up on what you were just talking about, Alicia, and starting wanting to unpack this word leadership, because there are lots of different ways of understanding what leadership is, lots of different definitions of that word. And here at Creative Australia, we really celebrate the diverse leadership practices that exist in arts and culture and beyond. But I wanted to just start the conversation by asking each of you, like, what does leadership mean to you? Just so we can hear a few diverse voices. So I might, Roz, start with you.
Sure. I actually think the word leadership often gets put on you rather than something that you necessarily identify or feel comfortable using. I think it's often a fairly loaded word. But when I take that back a step, I think leadership for me means showing up. It's how do you show up? When do you show up? Where do you show up? And then how do you do it again and again and again? And it's, I think, to Alicia's point, it's circular, it's multi-dimensional, it's ever-changing. And it's how to hold, create, and be in space, and what's the notion of invitation in that space is. So it's a very personal thing, and I think it's often then bracketed in definitions that sometimes can feel less inclusive than what they're intended to be, and that inclusiveness in the diversity of voices and people in places is what creates the concept of leadership. And I think when I stretch that further, I say it's for me personally, it's ethically positioned, values driven, and at a core true to a sense of self.
Oh, beautiful, Roz. Thank you. Yeah, and I think very much thinking about those diverse practices and really how we come at it from a position of like who we are and what we care about. So thank you, Roz. And I want to invite Julia and Simone, if you'd like to jump in, add your perspectives.
Oh, well, Alicia and Roz, I could not agree more with both of you. You've taken the words out of my mouth. But I guess to take a little step to the right with it, leadership's an interesting word, and we find it an interesting word to promote because particularly with emerging leaders, people say, well, I'm not a leader, that's not me, like that's other people in positions of power are leaders, and I do, and I'm not a leader. And I guess we a big push with all our programs is that leadership isn't positional. We all have a role to play, and there's a place for everyone in leadership, and it is about having the courage, I guess, to step up, but also looking alongside you to see who's next to you, who do you need to create space for so they can potentially step up as well. So it's a bigger view, I guess. And for anyone out there thinking, well, leadership's not for me, it is for you. And the fact that you're even on this webinar today today tells me that you're curious and you're interested, and we really welcome you to explore that, and don't be put off by thinking that leaders have it all sorted, and once you're in a position of leadership, you're there, because that's not how it works. And it's a bit like a muscle. You've got to practice it. And so, yeah, we look forward to seeing some of you join us on our program. Anyway, Simone, or Alicia, did you want to jump in there?
The only thing I would say is, when I look at it through my own lens in the community in which I'm involved in, I see it as a need to step in and up and bring people along with me. And so I think that's where it's like leadership is something that all of us can do, and it's an activity, and we can choose to step in or out depending what also is happening in our worlds and in our life.
Thanks, Simone. And Alicia, I'd love to invite you back into this, and if there's anything you want to add, and very particularly, I suppose, like, what does leadership mean for you in your context of living and working in regional Australia?
Yeah, I think as an artist working in small communities, and I've lived in variously sized, scaled communities across regional South Australia, and spent a bit of time in regional New South Wales and Vic as a young person as well. Different communities need different things. And so sometimes when I think about leadership, it's also thinking about what does it mean to be place-based and contextual in how we respond to what's happening. Also, so there's this kids movie, right? Just say with me. There's this kids movie called Robots, and the whole thing in Robots is like, see a need, fill a need. And when I think about leadership, it's a little bit like that. And I think Roz spoke to this so beautifully in terms of going, sometimes we don't necessarily see ourselves as leaders, but others look to us for leadership. And that happens actually a lot more to artists than we sometimes recognize or realize in regional communities, because we're sometimes the only person doing what we're doing. So people start to look to us because we have a visibility that naturally happens, because artists are storytellers and connectors and community builders. So we operate as leaders in our communities, even if we didn't set out to do that, or we have huge imposter syndrome, which was absolutely my experience. And I kept trying to go, no, don't look at me. I don't know what I'm doing. Still don't know what I'm doing. But that sense of care and responsibility that requires us to go, okay, how do I build my skills? How do I honor the fact that others are looking to me for leadership and support and guidance? And what is the role that I then have to nurture other people to step into that as well? And I think that's why programs like this are so important, because nobody sort of wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm a leader and I know exactly how to be a leader. It's an ongoing process of learning together and learning with each other.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, it truly is a collective effort, this work of leadership. And I want to use that as an opportunity to throw to Roz. Roz, for you to tell us a little bit more about Regional Arts Australia, definitely an organisation that, I think demonstrates incredible leadership in the arts and culture space in regional remote Australia, and in fact not only in regional and remote Australia, but as advocates for regional and remote cultural life more broadly. And invite you to share a bit about Regional Arts Australia and also about Artlands, this incredible gathering that you're going to be hosting later this year.
Thank you, Adelaide. And yeah, Alicia, it's back. It's coming back. I might just share my screen just to sort of show you a few slides and a few sort of pictures of things that might just help along the way here. Just going to go into full screen mode. Oh, it won't let me. That's fine. I knew that would happen. Is that okay? You can still all see? All okay? Great. So obviously, Regional Arts Australia works across regional remote Australia. We work across all landscapes, all geographies, all art forms. And with that, we pay our deep respects to the First Nations communities, lands, waters, airs across this amazing country that we live and work on. Regional Arts Australia itself has been around for 83 years now. So it's a long-standing organisation, but we're really acutely aware that that regional Australia is changing, and actually regional Australia in terms of population is growing significantly. And with that, the role and the value of the regional creative sector is constantly changing, and we need to be understanding that and working with that. and supporting artists and communities and regions to have connection to creative experience. And as I said before, we work to unlock that cultural ambition. And that's just a little photo there of my puppy dog, who comes with me on most of my journeys where we're allowed to go together, happily supporting the future is regional and the future is creative, which is Regional Arts Australia's tagline. As an organisation, as I said, we're a not-for-profit company limited by guarantee and a registered charity. We're by design distributed. We don't have a head office. We have staff across the country. Our board is across the country as well. There's a First Nations Knowledge Circle made up of 9 individuals who feed into the structure and the strategic thinking of the organisation. And we're actually very small. We're 4.8 EFT. And no one works full time. Everyone's part time, and everyone's got a practice of some form going on as well. So we're a small organisation, but we work in a very connected way with a lot of networks and a lot of partners across the country to ensure that we can do our best at advocating for regional and remote artistic and creative voice. We create, we deliver, we enable, and we advocate. And I won't talk in great detail around these pillars of what we do, but we do work across. We deliver funding programs on behalf of the federal government and also with the Minderoo Foundation. We broker partnerships across industries. We devise programs that translate investment into impact, and we deliver our programs, of which Artlands is one of those. Artlands itself has been around as an event since 1998 in various different forms, and always about being a sort of survey of contemporary regional cultural practice, like where are we now, what is happening, what do we need to advocate for. The last Artlands was in 2023, and that coincided with Regional Arts Australia turning 80. And so as part of our 80th birthday, we, through an EOI in process, invited and supported 80 individuals, artists and arts workers, to join us in Canberra for a part think tank, part workshop, part gathering, to really mull over and work through what the future of regional and regional practice should look like. What were the priorities? What did we need to do organisationally? What do we need to do across government? What do we need to do across the country? And those 80 participants came up with these 5 themes around cross-sector collaboration, skills development, equitable, accessible funding, compensation for artists, and for a different way of promoting the perception of regional arts. And I'm going to just show you through a few slides here, a few photos of Artlands. And it wasn't, and Alicia will be able to talk to this a little bit as a participant experience, it wasn't a standard conference by any stretch of the imagination. It very much was a think tank workshop facilitated conversation journey. And across those 3 days, we documented all the different things that were happening. So we documented 700 pieces of visual documentation from every post-it note, every drawing, every scribble. And there was a lot of information that came through that. And from this documentation, we got to drill down to these outcomes. And this documentation just gives you a little bit of an insight into some of the things that ways in which people were thinking about how we work collectively together and how we engage with creative practice. This is another one here. And the question we asked was, is the future of regional Australia fundamentally creative? And if it is, what do we need to do to ensure that for the next 10, 20, 30 years? How do we need to develop that further? If anyone's interested in any of this documentation, we actually have a library on our website where you can actually look at all 700 pieces of documentation. There's also a little documentary and 5 different podcasts that are specifically from 5 participants speaking to the experience and speaking to how they found the experience, what they got from it, what they found challenging, and how that's informed their work since then, because it's something that very much does stay with you and means different things at different times. This is just a couple of quotes here from various people that attended. But as I said, Alicia's on the call, who was actually in the room. And it was about people saying that it really was a very different process. It was a co-designed experience. It is something where the safety, cultural safety and care is at the forefront of what we do. And it is really important for us that everyone is heard and everyone has a voice in those spaces. And as I say, people came from all over the country. They were from 18 to 80 years old, and from all parts, like from people that would have taken 3 or 4 flights to people that could drive into Canberra. So geographically, there was a huge spread. And this just sort of leans in a little bit there. There was no keynote address. There were keynote listeners. The people that would normally give a keynote address were actually listening on the last day to listen to the participants that had been in the room to talk about what had bubbled up for them and what was important to them. So happy to share these slides with you so you can read in more detail, but I won't sort of pop my narration on and read through those quotes. Which brings us to this next Artlands, which will be in September 2026, so in a couple of months' time, on Kabi Kabi Country on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. And we will continue that model where it is a part symposium, part think tank, part workshop. We will go across 3 days. And we're looking again at having an EOI process for people to apply to Artlands and be supported to come to those gatherings. Where we will ask people to share, we will ask people to listen to and to be heard and to listen again. We'll find ways to record those narratives and to document what we're hearing and what we're considering and the ideas and the priorities that are bubbling up. And then we will advocate over the next few years. Again, it's like that circular design of saying, how can we work? How can we listen? How can we work together? How can we advocate to ensure that the future of regional Australia is fundamentally creative? And how do we support artists and organisations and communities to play their part in that, to the way that they want to play their part in that? And so there is some more information coming around Artlands in the next couple of weeks. But in the context of this particular opportunity, the people that will go through this programme will directly come to Artlands, and they'll be coming as part of this programme into that space, and we'll make sure that you're looked after in that way, but also very much part of the whole conversation.
Thank you so much, Roz, for sharing about the Regional Arts Australia and the incredible work you do, and the history of Artlands and kind of what people can expect as in participating as part of the Emerging Regional Arts Leaders Scholarship. And I just want to ask Alicia if you'd like to join us for this section of the conversation and just share a little bit about your experience of attending past Artlands and what was that experience like and what did it kind of mean for you?
Yeah, I think some of what Roz is speaking to in terms of the most recent, so the 23 Artlands and the direction it's taking now, is a real sense of intentionality around how do we think and talk together in the current context, which again speaks back to that idea of leadership that's contextual. So, historically, some of the regional arts gatherings were much kind of bigger conference style experiences, and they have incredible opportunities to listen and speak as well, but there was something about the really intentional curated experience where it was about going, we want a small enough group of people that you can actually really listen to each other and be in conversation with each other, to actually go, what do we do next? So it's not just a kind of, we're going to come and talk and then nothing happens, but what do we do with that? How do we send the ripples out beyond this moment and beyond this experience? And one of the things I really appreciated as a participant in that Artlands was what Roz spoke about in terms of the keynote listeners. So who do we want to bring into the room to be a listener rather than a speaker? So, we know that it's complicated, right? And there's lots of tensions that we have to wrestle with together. And so how we do that is just as important as what we actually do. And that was something that I really valued from Artlands too. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of the next one from afar. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alicia. And thank you, Roz. So participation in Artlands is a really important part of the scholarship package, and that will happen in September. I think it's the 23rd to the 26th of September this year, and Roz is giving me a thumbs up to say I've gotten those dates right. And as part of the scholarship, we'll support your attendance at Artlands and accommodation there. And after Artlands, there'll be a mentoring package, which I'll ask Ros to come back to in a minute, but I'm actually going to throw to the wonderful Julia and Simone from the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation now and invite them to join the conversation again and share with us a little bit more about the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation and very particularly the Trail Emerging Leaders Program, which will be another big part of participation in this scholarship. So Julia, over to you.
I think I just shared my screen and then I think it disappeared again. So I'll see if is that working? Oh, I've got to press, hold on, there we go. Got it.
Perfect. We can see it now.
Yeah. Sorry, just didn't press the additional share button at the bottom. I hope you can hear. We've got a heap of rain coming through Bathurst where I'm based, so I'm hoping that doesn't interrupt my sound because it's pretty heavy. But yeah, great to hear a little bit more from you, Ros, too. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit broadly about the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation, and then I'm going to invite Simone, Carol, Jermek to come in and talk about some of the ins and outs of the actual trail program. But essentially, the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation is a 30. What's it mean? We've been together as an organisation since about 1992, when it was realised that there was a real need to foster leadership development for those living in regional Australia. We knew that there was lots of leadership opportunities for those living in our metro areas, but not so much for those in for our regional folk. So that was sort of the starting or the birth of the foundation, and it's really great. What I'm really loving about working with Creative Australia is we are deeply connected to the agricultural sector. I guess that's where our roots are big and strong, but we love, regional Australia, as Ros mentioned, is changing and has changed a lot since 1992. And we're working more now, trying to work more closely with those in, arts, education, community sectors as well, not just agriculture sector. So that's why it's great to be working so closely with Creative Australia in this instance. But just to give you a bit of an overview, since 1992, more than 5,000 people have undertaken some form of program delivery with the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation. And we've spoken about this already, that we focus on programs where leadership is not an action, it's not a position, but it supports individuals to lead with courage and authenticity, navigate complexity and connect across difference. And we do that through experiential learning. So we don't do this by sitting in a classroom. You're not going to have someone talking at you in a classroom situation. You will be out learning about yourself through the connections with your cohort and through the space that your facilitators provide for you to learn about you, how you show up and how you interact with others. We offer a variety of programs here at the foundation. So Alicia's spoken about the Australian Rural Leadership Program, which is our flagship program. That was the program that kicked us off back in 1992, and that's targeting established leaders, so people that are already up and away and having a big impact within their industry or sector. We also have dedicated agribusiness programs, and then we have dedicated First Nations programs. We also deliver place-based programs, so we come into communities and work closely with within a community to create connections and foster leadership within a community setting. And then we also deliver the Trail program, which is targeting our emerging leader set, which is what we're here to talk about today. There's just in terms, there's a few numbers there just to talk through. 33 years of program delivery, 175 cohorts. When I look at that page, though, or those stats, the thing that we're most proud of is our big work or our deep work with our First Nations communities. That's always been a really key focus for us. And so we work really hard to work closely and get First Nations peoples on all our programs. And we also have some dedicated First Nations programs as well. But I'm going to pass across to Simone now, if you want to turn your camera on and talk to us a little bit more about the Trail Emerging Leaders Program.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. So this is actually some of the cohort from last year, half of them.
Yeah.
The program is designed, it's a 7-day immersive experiential program. And for folks that come from the creative arts sector, you will appreciate that learning through doing and movement and moving a classroom into a different way of being, such as the outdoors or immersing you into experiences, even through drama, is such a great way to be able to build strong connections, relationships. And for us, it's to do the work of leadership. So our programs are designed on what we call the 6 A's, so the 6 leadership practices that we see are super important. And when we design a program, we design it with this intent in mind. And so the program is emergent. We go where the cohort needs to go. You don't get a run sheet of this is what you're going to be doing every day, even though we'll know what you're going to be doing, but we're very much about presencing and about being able to be in the moment. And so for part of the program, we do a digital detox for the outdoor component, and we take phones away from folks. And you certainly have access to, your family, friends have access to an emergency contact, but it's really about just bringing things back to a simple level. So for us, at the heart of all of leadership practice is authenticity, which looks at, being real, basically, in how we show up. And then from there comes all the other practices, awareness of self and awareness of others, and how our reactions and responses can trigger others, and also how can we actually bring others along with us by even changing some of that. So a lot of emotional intelligence work. And so we talk about leadership being a set of behavioral practices, adaptation, being really able to be adaptive to different circumstances. And what we find is people that live in regional, rural, remote Australia are constantly being adaptive, often having to reinvent themselves, often having to deal with severe weather events. And so that is something that is an applied part of leadership, and we look at how does that look as well. We look at affiliation, which is who do you align with, and also how do you work across factions where there is competing needs, and how can you have those conversations that will hopefully enable you to have a more successful outcome that's shared. And then also from there comes advocacy. So what's the thing that we're passionate about? What is the thing that we're trying to drive change with? And then what are some steps and sequences that you're going to move forward in doing that? So as you've seen through some of those images that Julia has just shared, a portion of the 7 days is spent in the beautiful outdoors. This is actually outside of Canberra in Namadgi National Park, subalpine area. And trail typically is in March each year, and we're just about to start the trail program in a few weeks' time for this year's cohort. As I spoke about, is our program is experiential, so it's through learning through doing, and then from that we provide opportunities for reflection, deep discussion, and looking at what does this actually mean for me when I make a transition back home. So the folks that sit in this circle here come from all different diverse backgrounds. We might have researchers, we'll have farmers, we might have clinicians, we might have, well, actually next year we will have people representing the arts industry, which is super exciting. This year we have 2 cohorts. We mix them as much as possible to get as much diversity in thinking and thought. And so folks come from all over Australia. And with that, the age range really varies. It could be from the 20s right through to 50s, because we talk about leadership in terms of the stage that you may be at in that emerging leadership. And so together, through building relationships with each other, you can also share what are some of your challenges that you're facing in your leadership and in your community sectors that might be able to make some progress on, because you might find, talking opposite to someone who works in the cotton industry, the wheat industry, or in education, they may have already had some insights into that. So that's that piece about valuing diversity. Hey, don't you love what you get served up for lunch out in the bush? That's just a great photo to show you, we do look after you, and we make sure that you are well fed, as those folks show there. The other piece that I would say is that we really look at stretching you out of your comfort zone. So if we stay in that space where it always feels comfortable, it's often all we're going to get, and we don't know what is possible if we actually stretch you a little bit further. And for everyone, their stretch zone is going to be very different, and we make sure of that psychological, socio safety in terms of doing that. And so we're wanting to stretch you like this great participant here, so that you can see what might be possible. And through doing that, we use a range of different activities. We're not about, being the best navigator in the bush or being the best rock climber. It's actually about what is it that actually can help us to understand more about ourselves and how we relate to the world and to others around us. So each year the program varies. We also, in terms of the activities, dependent on water levels, dependent on like, for example, this year we're starting at Parliament House and looking at an activity where participants will spend time with advocacy groups from across the country, and then followed by time with politicians to understand how the political system works, so that you know how you can actually agitate and make some change, and to be able to influence as well. So none of these practices come in any particular order. We will be taking you from one side of the equation to the other. So, for example, this year the participants start in business attire in Parliament House, and then that night they're sleeping out under what we call a bivvy or a tarp out in the bush. And as facilitators, we do the same as what we would do. We don't ask you to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves. And so it's actually a lot of fun, except when it rains sometimes. That's called type 2 fun, when you retell the story later. But overall, it's about creating a deep, rich connection, and the experience is like the participants are playing in their sandpit to be able to see what they can choose to develop around those leadership practices to be able to take home. So I think that's probably enough, Julia. Is there anything that you think I've missed?
No, I don't. I did want to say that I often describe trail as dirt under your fingernails one moment and then walking the Houses of Parliament in the next. Like, you sort of have this it's a fabulous program. You have really diverse experiences in that short week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a deep dive, and also it's the network that exists beyond. And I'm sure, Alicia, you can even speak to that from the time that you've done a program with us. It's what lives on beyond the length of the program, that you know that you've got people across the country in different sectors that you can lean into at different times. So that's a really valuable part of the program as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Simone and Julia. And I'd love to throw Alicia to you to share a little bit about your experience in the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation's programs. You did a slightly different one from the one that the participants will be doing through this scholarship program, but would love to invite you to share your experiences of similar types of programs.
Yeah, so I did the flagship program that Julia talked about, the Australian Rural Leadership Program, which goes over 15 months, and it's 5 kind of residential experiences, but each of them, they're built on the same theory of change. It's just that Trail is kind of a condensed first version. Although I was watching all of those photos and seeing everyone in kayaks, and we had to build our own boat in ARLP. But so the thing for me, I did ARLP in 2016, so 10 years ago, which seems like a lifetime ago. But I came into the program really scared, actually. And some of it was about that imposter syndrome of feeling like, well, I'm not really a leader. What do I know? I've applied, but why have I been picked? And knowing I was on the younger end of the cohort at the time. So there was people sort of in their late 20s and early 30s, which is where I was. And then people right up into their 60s. So people who were the same age as my dad who were in our cohort. And so it really did have that diversity that Simone was talking about in terms of people from all different walks of life. We had, I think, from memory, about 30 people in our cohort, and only 2 of us were from the arts. But that was actually one of the reasons that I applied, and some of the value that I got from it. Although it can be really amazing and useful and helpful to be with people from our sector, from our industry. When you work in the regions, we are always working with people across sectors, across disciplines, and in different kinds of ways. And so that was one of the things that attracted me to ARLF's programs is I knew that I needed to develop my skills in that complexity, in that cross-sector way of thinking and working. And so in the program, there were people from, there were primary producers, people working with cattle and sheep and people working in cotton, there was a midwife, there were people from all sorts of backgrounds, a couple of people working in local government, someone working in state government, people working with fisheries. And that was the benefit of being able to wrestle with all of these ways that leadership interacts. Yeah. I work in small communities where sometimes I have to sit at the table with people who don't understand what I do, don't understand its value, who sometimes unfortunately hate certain things about my identity and my perspective. And we have to sit at those tables and we have to figure out how we cut across those things, how we find a way to make impact, how we find a way to move forward. And that was really what the program helped me to dig into and helped me to explore. And I've been lucky enough to be part of some other programs, both before, but especially since in the last 10 years. And my experience with the ARLP program has been the most impactful professional development that I've done. And it's still resonating with me now. I'm still learning lessons from various activities that we did, but also from those networks, which I think both Julia and Simone spoke to. The group of thinkers that enabled me to access and that I now have access to, and the way that it does invite you into being really vulnerable about where you're up to and what your next step is. And like I said, although I did a slightly different program to what Trail is, it's all built on the same theory of change. Trail's just a condensed version. So maybe even a bit harder, I don't know. But yeah, so impactful for me in terms of how I think about leadership, how I think about solving problems, how I think about bringing people to the table and who needs to be at the table even. So I cannot overstate how impactful and important that it's been. But for me, it was that big thing about just being exposed beyond my sector and thinking about what it means to be a regional leader, because our experience is different to our city counterparts. And sometimes it can be quite, and I'm sure people on the call have had this experience where we travel to the city to be part of conferences or workshops or think tanks and just have that feeling of isolation sitting in the room going, I am having a completely different experience living, working, leading in the regions. And so to be with other regional leaders to unpack and grow it's so important. And it really was life-changing for me in a whole bunch of ways. I feel like I'm just repeating myself now, but
Thank you so much, Alicia. It's such a beautiful, testimonial for the programs, but also so great to hear how much it's supported you in your journey, and that that's an ongoing journey as well. And I think I want to so thank you to Julia, Simone, and Alicia for sharing that. And I think if you're listening, to all of these amazing activities, the Trail program, being able to attend Artlands, thinking, there's a lot in this program. And so I want to invite Roz back into the conversation now to just speak a little bit about the mentoring that is woven throughout this program and will be available to the kind of the 8 scholarship participants as a way of kind of connecting a lot of these activities. But Roz, could I ask you to speak a bit about kind of what mentoring is and what it might, how the mentoring program will operate as part of this program?
Yeah, sure. And great to hear all of the different parts of this program. And the mentoring really is going to be the individual and the collective thread that holds and weaves between all the parts. And so we're looking at building a program that has a group component to it, and that will be bookended at various stages of the duration of this program, and individual mentoring component to it as well. So those two things will sort of help you weave through your journey. And listening to all the speakers here, it's like it is very individualistic. You are going to be coming in at your own place, at a certain place at where you are at, and where you might think you want to go and where you will actually go. And the mentoring will be there to support you through your individual theory of change, for your collective theory of change, and it will help you hold on to or reflect or respond to the different modes of learning, the different modes of connectivity, the different modes of experience that you will have throughout the duration. And I think importantly with something like this, and everyone's spoken to it, is that you might not necessarily have an experience or think something through at that time. It might be 6 months after that you realize that something's come full circle to you. And so we're looking at providing some mentoring package that allows for the bookending and holding you and supporting you to have the best experience possible throughout the key markers of the program, but also tapping in so that you can actually then dive, spin, and explore at a different pace that suits you. So it very much, I sort of want to say safety net, and it's not the right word, but it's some sort of woven support that is there to ensure that as much as possible, you're going to get the best possible experience with a culture of care and a culture of safety, emotional and physical, wrapped around you to have an experience that will then be with you through your artistic and your professional journey to come.
Beautiful, Roz. Thank you. I feel like I want to applaud each of you after you talk about each of the activities, because you just make them sound so incredible and really nourishing and supportive, and challenging in all the right ways. So, and thank you. And I want to invite everyone back onto the into the conversation now, Julia, Simone, and Alicia, just to share a little bit. I think people will have been listening to these conversations, listening to all of the different activities and wondering, is this for me? And I suppose I'd like to invite each of you to just share a little bit about, share your perspective perhaps on who do you think should be applying for this opportunity? What might they be thinking or struggling with, or what kind of attitudes or behaviours might they have? Anything that you want to share. I might throw to you, Roz, first, just because you've got your mic off.
That was a mistake. I would say, why not? I'd ask why not as to why. And I would probably just say the only thing that you really do need to commit to is committing yourself and your time, and giving and trusting the process, trusting the organizations that are part of this, trusting the people that they're going to bring in, trusting your colleagues that are going to be part of the program, and trusting yourself. So it's all you need to actually consider, from my perspective, and the others might be a lot more articulate, is that can I commit the time, and do I have the and I have got the personal support I might need in my personal world to commit me the time to allow myself to absorb in this process? Because the more that you can let go and be part of it and absorb in it, as Alicia said, the more you're going to get out of it, and it will be ongoing. So more the question of why not.
Thanks, Roz. And Julia, I'm going to throw to you now because you've also got your mic off. So, yeah.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you, Roz. And I guess the other thing I would say is that, and this is often a question we get at the foundation, I don't have the time, like it's a time commitment. And then I would push back to say there's no perfect time. There's no perfect time to do this stuff or do this development. But what I love about what's on offer here, it's not just trial. And I mentioned that mentoring is such a fabulous supportive tool in the leadership space. We love mentoring, like it allows for deeper reflection and it kind of turbocharges your learning. And then having, access in the art space. And I mean, it's just such a beautifully rounded little package of goodness. So, throw your hat in the ring. Why not, say yes, stand up and say yes to yourself, is what I would say.
Thanks, Julia. Simone, what would you say to the person who's on the fence, not quite sure yet if this is for them?
I think that it is. If you're on the fence, it's probably about investing in yourself to be able to invest further in those in where you want to make a difference. And so if you're craving something else and you might not be sure what that something else is, then it's a little bit like just stretching yourself now to say, hey, maybe I just want to take a shot at this and give it a go, because that's actually where you can actually start to have some impact. So just go for it. And like folks have spoken about, we all at times have imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong here? Do I have the skills, the ability? And of course, collectively together, you will realize that yes, you can amplify so much. And I think it really helps develop your level of confidence to be able to take some of those next steps. So yeah.
Thanks, Simone. And Alicia, I want to ask you, like, this scholarship, this Emerging Regional Arts Leader Scholarship, is for people kind of who are in the emerging stages, like 5 to 10 years of experience. And I want to ask you to cast your mind back to that when that was you, and like what you would have said to yourself then about why you should apply for an opportunity like this.
Yeah, I was thinking about everything everyone was saying and thinking even about my experience with ARLP. Um, at the time, I was terrified. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I also had a little, like my youngest was, I think, about 16 months old, like they were not even two. So that kind of internal fear, that worry about not being good enough, that worry about taking a spot that maybe someone else deserved more, but also the practical considerations of, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to actually just be present and ready? Those are all real considerations. But what I would say is, A, if you're curious enough to be on this call, then yes, you're the right person. The other thing that I would say is we find what we look for. So if you are looking for something and you are looking for how you can unpack what's happening for you, how you can wrestle with what leadership means for you, then this is that moment, right? Like if you come in kind of looking for a magical answer, probably not going to find that. But if you're ready to be curious, like genuinely curious and really interrogate where you're up to and where you might be going, then I think that's who it's for. And especially at an emerging stage, it's about being really curious, and willing to just sink into it and see what it brings you and be open to what it brings you. And I would also just encourage people to think about who else in your community might not even have known about this webinar, might not even know about this opportunity. Send it on to 5 people, because there are people that sometimes just miss out because they don't get the information. So you're here, you're curious enough to be here, you heard about it, apply, and then send it on to 5 other people that you think would benefit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alicia. And yeah, I think that's definitely the work of leadership, is lifting up those around you as well and encouraging them to invest in themselves as well. I want to thank you all so much for generously sharing about the really incredible activities that are part of this scholarship and your reflections on kind of, what the experience might be like. So thank you, Roz, Alicia, Julia, and Simone. Thank you very much. We haven't had any questions from the crowd today, which I think means that either we've answered all of them or that people are still mulling on them. So I want to encourage you to please feel free to reach out to myself and my colleague Emerald directly to have a conversation about the program. And I know that Julia and Roz would be very happy to kind of chat with you about different aspects of the program activities, if you would like to have further discussion about those as well. And I also just want to mention that we do, with the scholarship opportunities, there is also support available for travel and also for access needs. So if you do need that support, it is available to apply for through the scholarship program. And otherwise, I just really encourage everyone who is on the call today and who watches this webinar to, please consider yourself a leader. The word leadership is really diverse, and the word emerging shouldn't preclude you if you are eligible for this opportunity. So please encourage you to get in touch with us and to apply. I've just noticed that my lovely colleague Julia has her hand up, and I'm going to ask her what she'd like to share.
I just thought I'd mention, Adelaide, the writing application workshop that we're hosting next week. I'm sure you've heard about it. We're just basically hosting a workshop to help you. How do you best sell yourself to shine in amongst the applicants that we're going to get? So please, if you've got time, it's next Tuesday, the 2nd of March, or 3rd of March, sorry. Anyway, there'll be details sent around at 1 p.m. Sydney time, New South Wales time. It'll go for an hour. It'll also be recorded, so you could watch it afterwards. But please, if you're keen to get support and want to build your skills in writing applications for these kinds of opportunities, please join in.
Thanks so much, Julia. And Emerald is just popping a link to that in the chat for this webinar, and we'll also make sure that link is in the description of the video recording. Please check out more information about the scholarship on the Creative Australia website. And I also just want to do a quick shout out to one other opportunity that we do have open at the moment that is also particularly targeted to people living in regional and remote Australia, and that is our Company Director Capability Fund. It's a fancy name for encouraging those who might want to step into a role on a board of an arts organisation to receive some funding to undertake training that will help you to kind of feel really confident to step into those roles. And being on a board of an organisation is only one form of leadership, but it can be a really powerful, impactful form of leadership and way of representing your community. So I really encourage you to have a look at that. And again, details for that are in the chat and in the description. So I think that's it now. Just a final thank you to all of our wonderful panelists and also to our Auslan interpreters. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Adelaide.